Hello crafty friends and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is extra special because I'm joining a YouTube and Instagram hop where we are giving gratitude back to all the amazing content creators in our community. You know the saying, it takes a village, and well, I'm excited to be part of this hop that shines a little extra light on all our beautiful talent out there. For today's project, I am trying something brand new, using a sentiment background embossing folder to create a stunning textured backdrop and then adding lots of sparkle to make it shine. And here's the fun part, there's no stamping and no die cutting for this card. Instead, we'll be playing with some fun, gorgeous pattern papers and letting them do the magic. So let's dive in and create something beautiful together. For my background today, I'm using the new Words of Gratitude embossing folder, which I thought was absolutely perfect for this project. This is a 3D embossing folder that creates beautiful collage of thankful sentiments all arranged into a textured word background. Now this one is very similar to the birthday sentiments 3D embossing folder that came with the September card kit by Simon. Now it has beautiful playful heartfelt phrases that are perfect for your card fronts, tags and party theme projects. The Words of Gratitude embossing folder not only radiates warmth and gratitude but also brings a really uplifting positive feel to your card. I absolutely love this gratitude version of the embossing folder. It's all about kindness and appreciation. Some of the sentiments you'll see embossed in the background include a million thanks, thanks so much, you're the best, thank you, so thoughtful and wonderful, just to name a few. It really brings that heartful touch to any project. Well, for my background today, I'm using the Simple Stories Fun Times paper pad, which was part of the cut kit. These pattern papers are filled with cheerful designs and playful patterns. If you're someone who loves adding color to your projects, this pack is definitely for you. Not only are the colors bright and happy, but the patterns themselves are absolutely stunning and bring so much life to your cards. For today's card, I'll actually be using two pattern papers from this pack. One will be transformed into my embossed background, and the other will serve as both my focal point and the sentiment. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no stamping or die cutting in this project. Everything comes directly from these gorgeous pattern papers. To start, I trimmed out an A2 size panel of this colorful pattern paper that has some printed text on it. I placed it inside the embossing folder, making sure that the embossed pattern is raised on the embossing folder. This will make sure that it really pops once the panel is embossed. I aligned the paper and ran this sandwich through my die cutting machine, and here's a look at that gorgeous texture that you see here on this embossed panel. You could definitely leave the embossed panel as is. It already looks beautiful with all those sentiments pressed onto the paper. But I thought it would be fun to take it a step further and really highlight all those beautiful textures. A great trick for this is to swipe ink pad directly over the raised impressions. For this panel, I'm using the Simon's Stamp White Pigment ink. I like pigment ink for this technique because it's nice and juicy and sits on the surface of the paper instead of soaking in. I gently swipe the paper across the panel, applying very light pressure so the ink only kisses the raised areas. That way, the embossed words really pop against the colorful pattern paper. Of course, if a little ink gets onto the flat portions of the backgrounds, that's totally fine. It just gives a softer, more blended look and adds character to the panel. Now, one of the greatest things about pigment ink is that it stays wet for a really long time for you to heat emboss on it. So, while my ink was still damp, I sprinkled some of the beautiful sparkle embossing powder. Well, you could absolutely go with clear embossing powder here if you want a clean, crisp, raised effect that keeps the background soft and subtle. But for my card, I decided to use sparkle embossing powder instead. This sparkle powder doesn't overwhelm the design, it's not super glittery or over the top. Instead, it adds this gentle shimmer that catches the light when you tilt the card. It really elevates the background without competing with the pattern paper or the sentiments that we'll be adding later on. It's a simple technique, but it brings so much more depth and interest to an otherwise flat embossed background. Well, here's a little tip. Now, I forgot to run the anti-static powder tool over the panel before swiping on the pigmenting, so some of the powder ended up settling into the little crevices of the pattern instead of just the raised area. So all I did was tap the panel firmly on the back to knock off any of that excess powder, and most of it came right off. Another thing to note is that it's very important to make sure that your heat gun is fully warmed up before you bring it to your panel, because we are embossing the entire background panel here. Also, make sure that the heat gun keeps moving across the panel in steady sweeps. This helps avoid overheating or warping of the cardstock, especially since the pattern paper can sometimes be a little thinner than your regular cardstock. And with that, you have this gorgeous embossed background with shimmery, subtle sparkle that really makes the sentiment words come to life. This is actually the very first time I've created a card with an all sentiment 3D embossed background, and I have to say I'm really loving the results. The texture, the shimmer, and those words of gratitude coming together look so beautiful. Now that our background is ready, it's time to move on to the focal point and the sentiment. Like I mentioned earlier, this project does not involve any stamping or die cutting. Instead, I selected one of the panels from the pattern paper pack that will give me both the elements in one go. The design I chose to feature is this colorful rosette image, and the best part is that it already comes with a sentiment. I trimmed the panel neatly using my paper trimmer so that it would fit nicely as a focal point. Now, before adhering this focal piece, I first attached my sparkly embossed background onto a top folding card base. Because the background has a lot of texture, I used a strong liquid glue to make sure it is adhered well and stayed in place and flat on the card base. Once that was done, I was ready to center the rosette panel and start building up the finished look of my card. I really love how that embossed pattern came together. It's such a showstopper on its own. Honestly, at this point, I could even add a tiny little sentiment strip across the front and call this card done. That's how versatile this embossing folder is, and I can definitely see myself reaching out for it again and again for all kinds of projects. But let's circle back to our focal point piece. To make it stand out even more, I decided to back it up with this absolutely gorgeous pattern paper by Your Paper Insider. Now, it has the most stunning holographic shine, and that reflective finish really helps the centerpiece pop against the textured background. I trimmed the holographic cardstock so that it leaves about a quarter-inch border on all four sides, creating a clean, shiny frame around my rosette panel. Then, to give the focal point some lift and dimension, I adhered it to the center of my sparkly embossed card front using foam tape. That little bit of height not only adds a visual interest but also draws the eye right to the sentiment and the rosette image. To add a bit more contrast to this colorful card front, I decided to include a small sub sentiment strip. For this, I grabbed the Reverse Gratitude Sentiment Strip sheet by Simon Stamp. I really love this black base with white lettering. It creates a nice, bold contrast against our colorful background. A fun tip is that these strips are printed on toner sheets, which means that you could use them with your foils. Add foiling to them if you wanted that little bit of extra sparkle on your projects. The sheet has so many different sentiments, and the size is just perfect for tucking in as a sub sentiment on all kinds of gratitude themed cards. For today, I chose the sentiment strip that says "So grateful for you" and adhered it right below my rosette using liquid glue. To make sure it was perfectly straight, I used my T-square ruler to align the strip precisely. This little touch really helps anchor the focal point and adds just the right amount of contrast to make the card feel complete. For the finishing touches, I wanted to bring in a little extra sparkle and movement. I reached for the Surprise Party Sequin Mix by Simon Stamp. It is such a fun and colorful mix that ties in perfectly with the cheerful look of this card. Now, this particular pack is currently unavailable on the Simon's Stamp website, but don't worry, I'll be sure to link something similar that would work just as beautifully on this bright and colorful card front. Now, to add even more shimmer, I also brushed a bit of sparkle over the rosette using my glitter brush pen. It's a subtle detail, but when the light catches it, it really enhances the focal point and ties the whole design together with just the right amount of shine. And with that, our sparkly, textured, and totally colorful gratitude card is complete. I absolutely love how the 3D embossed background, the pattern papers, and those little sentiment touches all came together to create something cheerful and heartfelt. I think this card really captures the warmth and appreciation that the Words of Gratitude embossing folder is all about, and it was so fun to experiment with all that shimmer, sequins, and the holographic accents to make the design pop. I hope this gives you some inspiration to try out the sentiment embossed backgrounds or to get creative with your pattern papers in new ways. Now, since I'm participating in this YouTube and Instagram hop, please don't forget to check out the other amazing creators who are sharing their projects too. There's so much talent and inspiration in this community, and this hop is all about giving back and celebrating each other's creativity. I'll make sure to leave the full hop list and links in the description so you can hop along and see all the beautiful cards. I will also have links to all the products that I used in today's video listed down in the description box below. Please note that all of these links are affiliate links, which means that if you shop using my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.